Welcome to the Joy Route podcast. This is episode 2. In this episode, I'll share my expenses and budgeting mistakes while also offering useful tips and ideas. And these road trip tips are intended not only to help my fellow nomads dealing with tight travel budgets, but individuals who plan to travel. Hello, I'm Frankie, and with this latest epic road trip, I have been on the road like 10 months. I'm thinking it's like 304 days. And let me just say this road tripping represents the ultimate way to explore the United States. Unlike other modes of transportation, traveling in your own vehicle offers the unique freedom to embrace slow mode or slow motion travel. In slow mode, you travel at your own pace, aligned with your budget and personal preferences. As a digital nomad, I'll say this in my Jay-Z voice. I got 99 challenges, but traveling via the wrong mode of transportation ain't one. I'm convinced road traveling best allows one to travel on their own terms. I've had the pleasure of taking several long multi-month road trips, ranging from journeys to Atlanta and Alabama, from Minnesota to Wisconsin, to crisscrossing the country along the iconic Route 66, all the way from Ohio, the Midwest, to the Wild West. In my road trip travels, I follow the joy route, a term I coined meaning living my best life as best I can. I've been on the road with this latest trip, like I said, about 304 days, and I'm off the road, and I am glad. So in this video, I am going to share my expenses and budgeting mistakes while also offering useful travel tips and ideas, regardless of the way you travel. I do understand that not all individuals be on the road while living in a van, but I believe that my experience will offer valuable tips to various types of travelers. So let's delve in. Let's catch a glimpse of my adventure budget and some wild stories. I kicked off my epic road trip with a friend. She traveled from Alabama and I traveled from Ohio. I think we met somewhere in Tennessee. I didn't know when I would return, but I started my trip with $1,700 in my travel bank account. The amount, yeah, it wasn't based on any particular reason. It's just what I decided to allocate for the journey. I cannot give an exact breakdown of my expenses and have no idea how much I actually spent over the course of my what was a 10-month road trip. I'm guessing like so 10 months at 6 months it's like 15,000. So 10 months, I'm guessing 20, 30,000. I really don't know. I consider this amount to be reasonable though. If it was like say 30,000, well no, maybe a little bit more than 30,000. The reason why I consider it to be reasonable because this amount was covering like my small monthly bills that have nothing to do with traveling. And on average, I would say my daily expenses for traveling during this epic road trip, I would say they were about $30 to $50. Although some days it could be more and some days it could be less. Because throughout this trip, there have been many days where I haven't spent any money. There are days when I mostly graze or warm up food and spend the majority of my time at some beautiful state park. But you know what? As far as pre van or pre car travel maintenance, so I own my vehicle, but I had to get pre-car maintenance before hitting the road. The maintenance included like tire replacement, oil change. I needed some front end repairs, and that cost me around $2,500. And during the trip, I had to address several issues: front brakes, back brakes, steering wheel issue, oil change, bulb replacement, electrical issue. I had so many issues to deal with. But what I found a tip that works for me, and that's to hire a mobile mechanic. And I still use Craigslist because on Craigslist, a mobile mechanic will list if they're certified. And if you go to see if they're certified, you will find their reviews. What I like about mobile mechanics, one time my car had like, my van had broke down and I went to a dealership and it was like an absurd amount of money. And I had this mobile mechanic come out. It was like nighttime when he came out with his flashlight, everything. It was just the alternator, not just the alternator, but the dealership quoted me 1900. He did it for 600. He came out. Mobile mechanics are mobile, so if you stuck, you ain't got to. You live in your vehicle or your camper van, so you need to be at the repair shop. But anyway, so I find that using mobile mechanics works for me. As far as lodging and accommodation, like as somebody who lives mostly full time in my van, I consider the cost of the van repair to be the cost for lodging and accommodations. What I like doing during this road trip, except in Las Vegas, and I'll circle back to that, we primarily along the trip, like getting out west, so we primarily stayed at like casinos that allow van RV parking. And some they allow for like up to 7 days. Of course, they anticipate that you will eat and enjoy entertainment at the casino, although it's not required. And you can find casinos on your way down, and they want van dwellers, RVers, which they interchangeably think of y'all like that. And they're not gonna ask you, well, how much are you spending with us? If you saying you come in there, you get a pass to put on your window, and you can stay sometimes up to 7 days. Now, when I got to Arizona, we stayed at RTR, we stayed on BLM land, and that was fine. So we did, and also y'all, we paid for a couple of campgrounds, but the campgrounds in my experience are very inexpensive, like $50 a night. And if it's two of us, we're like splitting the cost. And so that's relaxing too, staying at a campground. What else? I would say, oh, so also, if you don't own a van or a vehicle to like sleep in or travel in, there are several companies that rent vans that sleep as many as like seven, maybe even more. But I found a couple of van companies that sleep as many as seven people. The cost of gas, like for a road trip, if you're in the Midwest, if you're in Ohio, you're in some of these states, the gas might be $2, almost $3. But when you get to California and out west, you might be paying $5, $6. So that was the cost of gas. I would say coming from Ohio to out west, I spent about $600. Now I want to talk about food while traveling. So I experienced both sides of the coins, I should say. My friend, she had a van. She was mostly cooking and refrigerating stuff. I was mostly eating out as a digital nomad. The work that would be involved with me cooking as opposed to what I'm saving in time. It was just easier for me to eat out. I wish I had a better plan as far as like the food choices, where I was going to go to eat, how I was going to make it work. I even learned a method to cook in my van at the last minute. I would say cooking in the van, obviously you have more control, you can eat healthier, but there are healthy choices you can make with eating out. But I didn't make the healthy choices all the time. Being on the road, just like being house and zip codeless, was a lot. So I found myself like just eating the wrong choices, but I didn't have to. When you on a road trip, depending on if you've taken time off, if you've taken a sabbatical, whatever, your activities are going to depend. So road trip, it does give you that vacation feeling. And I'm a touristy type of person. Like I love touristy activities. I love food festivals and fairs and cultural events. However, I've come to realize that I need to be mindful of indulging because I'm not a tourist. Like being in a van, I am not a tourist, and you can really get caught up in spending a lot doing touristy activities. But of course, there's also a lot of free activities, and I really enjoy nature. So nature and state parks, but even state parks and nature, there is a cost. If you're gonna be Yeah, state parks cost. But what I would say is when I've traveled via the airport, via my luggage, the airports are like little cities. And it was a lot on me to travel. And then when you get there, you need like Uber, you need a way to get around. So I love just driving from city to city. And what's unique about driving from city to city, like you in slow-mo, you travel depending on if you on a sabbatical, if you just live on the road or whatever, you travel at your own pace, so it's not like it's intense. When I travel from the west, the Midwest to out west, it's like 2,000 to 3,000 miles. And the thing is, I take it 1 mile and 1 minute at a time, and so that's why I embrace slow-mo travel. But how about you? What modes do you like to travel? What is your best mode of travel? Is it a plane? Is it a boat? Is it driving? You tell me. I hope I've offered some helpful tips in this episode of ways or why I enjoy slow mo travel and kind of ways you can save money, like getting a mobile mechanic, or I wasn't in control of my food choices because when you're working and you're trying to clean up in a van, it's a lot. But anyway, I hope I share some helpful tips. I'll be back. Thank y'all for coming to this podcast. I'm doing it, y'all. I'm not going to wait till somebody give me permission or until my podcast is perfect because life is short. We say life is short, but we don't really believe life is short. Because if we really believe that life is short, we would do our life differently. We would kick off those items on our bucket list. Thank you for listening to the Joy Ross podcast. I appreciate giving a like, thumbs up, leave y'all comments. I've read all y'all comments. If I get in there answering those comments, y'all, I will stop doing these podcasts. But love y'all. Thanks for commenting. I'll be in touch. And whatever you do, however you do it, always, always, always take the joy route. Take the joy route.